The magical readathon starts next month, and so I thought I would film my TBR. And the way that this readathon works is you pick a wizarding career, and then you take classes or read books based on what you would need to study in order to be successful in your career. And each class has a bookish prompt associated with it, and that's how you end up forming your TBR. I chose to be an Auror this year, and I 100% blame Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them for me ending up making this decision. And so I have to read 5 books, and those are in the classes for Charms, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Herbology, Potions, and Transfiguration. The prompt for Charms is to read a book with a white cover, and for that I'm going to be reading Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. And you might be saying, that's not a white cover, that's a reddish-orangish cover. But if you take off the dust jacket, it does have a white cover, so I'm counting it. And I've read this book before, and I've read all the other books in the series, but I did that last year in January-ish, and so I decided it was time for me to actually reread this book and reread the rest of the series. So I'm going to be using April to get around to starting to reread this book, which I actually really like this book. I don't really like Gemina, and I don't really like Obsidio, but I think that Illuminae is a pretty good book. So maybe I would recommend you the whole series, but I would definitely recommend reading this book if you like books that are set in space and all that, and are also books that are told with, like, found footage in a way, because that is what Illuminae and the rest of the books in the series are told through. They're told through, like, descriptions of videos and also text messages to people and emails and stuff like that, and other found documents. So I think this book is worth it, and maybe I'm just biased about the other 2 books and not liking them, but there's just things about them that I'm like, this isn't good writing. But the actual idea of each of the books is really cool, but the actual execution of them in terms of writing and characterization of some of the people is kind of, like, wonky. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. This is a TBR, not a review. So, yeah, I'm reading Illuminae for Charms, because it has a white cover. Defense Against the Dark Arts prompt is to read a book with a coastal setting or that is set on the sea, and for this I'm going to be reading The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, because all 4 of our main characters live right up on the Long Island Sound, so that's pretty coastal to me. I've read this book many times, as evidenced by all of the highlighting and pen that I have in my copy, and since it's such a popular book, I don't think I'm going to give a description of what happens in it. I think I'm just going to move on to the next prompt. But yeah, this is one of my favorite books of all time. It's not my favorite cover. Don't like this cover. Didn't like this movie. But the book itself is one of my favorite books of all time. So I'm excited to reread it again this year, even though I reread it last year. For Herbology, the prompt is to read a book that starts with an M, and I will be reading Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I've not read the book before, but I saw the movie that came out in 2017, and I've watched people play a game based on it, so I know what happens in the book, but I've never actually read it. So I'm excited to actually read the original version of it that the adaptations were based on. So, because I know it'll be good, but I don't know exactly what's different in this compared to the other media I've consumed that was based on this, if that makes sense. The Potions prompt is to read a book that's under 150 pages, and for this I picked Happy Birthday, Wanna June by Kurt Vonnegut. And this is actually a play, and it's actually a play I was in 2018. I got to play a dead 10-year-old. So that's fun. And I look forward to reading this a lot, or rereading it a lot, because I really miss being in the show, and so it'll remind me all of the good times I had 2 years ago. I really miss it. I really wish I could do it again at some point. Hopefully I will. Maybe not as a dead 10-year-old, but as someone else in the show. So, yeah, I really look forward to rereading this, because it's a really good play. I haven't read anything else by Kurt Vonnegut, but if this is any indication of what his other works are like, I think I'll get around to it at some point. Last is Transfiguration, and the prompt is to read a book with a character who can shapeshift in it. But I'm kind of changing this prompt because I don't have any books at home that have characters who can shapeshift in them, so I'm kind of switching it to be characters who are really good at disguising themselves and who do it often in a book. And for that transformed, shapeshifted prompt is why I'm reading The Mysterious Benedict Society by Trenton Lee Stewart. Because there's a character named Milligan in this book who wears disguises all the time, and a lot of the time he'll switch a disguise, like, instantly. Like, in between, like, you turn away, and then you turn back, and he's in a different disguise. So I definitely think that he's the closest to shapeshifting you can be in a world where magic is not a thing. And this book is also a book I read before many times. I love the series so much. It's a great middle grade series that holds up even if you aren't in middle school anymore. So I would recommend it if you like books like The Secret Series by Pseudonymous Bosch and A Series of Unfortunate Events by the person who wrote A Series of Unfortunate Events. I never read it, so I don't remember who wrote it. Oh my goodness. It's late. I have a headache. I can't remember who wrote A Series of Unfortunate Events. But it's like those two things. It's a bunch of kids who are kind of weird, and they become part of a society. That's not what it's about. I don't know how to explain this book very well. Again, because it's late, and my mind has lost. I've lost my mind. I'm gonna finish the video now and go drink some tea. Because I can't explain any more books anymore. But yeah, I'm reading this because it has a character who can disguise themselves. So yeah, that was my TBR for the Owls Readathon, Magical Readathon, Owls Edition 2020. I will try to film a wrap-up at the end of April after I've read all the books, but I can't promise anything because I promised a wrap-up after the reading rush, and I never followed through on that. So I'm not going to promise anything this time, but if I do end up filming it, that'll be a special treat. It might not happen. Probably won't happen. But maybe it will. We'll have to see. We'll also have to see if I end up being able to read 5 books in a month. I should be able to do that because I read 7 books in 7 days. Easily. But I don't know. Maybe if I'm not under pressure, I won't read all 5 books in a month. So, I'll either see you when I make my Newts TBR, or when I do my Owls wrap-up. Flip a card, toss a coin. Find out in a month. See you later. Bye.